Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're embarking on a truly fascinating journey, deep into profound Buddhist philosophy. Now, I know, the word philosophy can sometimes sound a bit dry or academic, but stick with me, because what we're unpacking today is actually a brilliantly logical, highly practical system for solving a problem we literally all deal with: mental clutter. Think about it. Have you ever felt totally overwhelmed by your own wandering thoughts? Or maybe caught yourself endlessly scrolling, suddenly desperately craving something you didn't even know existed like 5 minutes ago? Well, today we're going to diagnose exactly why that happens, and much more importantly, how to actually clear out all that mental grime.
To make sense of all this, we're going to break it down logically into 5 clear steps. We'll start with the power of the pendulum, move to the true versus false self, then dust and grime, followed by the super relatable range hood metaphor, and finally, focus to escape.
Okay, let's dive into Section 1, the power of the pendulum. So, to really grasp this philosophy, we first need to look at how we process complex information through this fascinating concept of shared focus. This is what's known as the pendulum effect. The core idea here is simple but powerful. Group practice makes difficult things easy. When a bunch of people focus on the exact same problem or study the same material together, their minds naturally begin to synchronize. It creates this powerful, unseen momentum. It's kind of like if you hang multiple pendulums on a wall. Eventually, just through subtle shared vibrations, their swinging naturally aligns. You don't even have to consciously know how it works. Just by being in a shared learning environment, kind of like what we're doing right now with this explainer, you're already tapping into it.
And the impacts of this effect are absolutely huge. It synchronizes minds, vastly accelerates your individual progress, and builds a shared momentum that basically carries everyone forward. Whether you're looking at a family, a company, a whole country, or just a study group, this underlying dynamic is always there. Look, studying alone behind closed doors, it's slow, it's difficult, but tapping into this shared momentum is a wildly efficient way to learn and transform. And getting on the same page like this is the perfect foundation for grasping the slightly heavier concepts we're about to tackle.
Moving right along to Section 2, True versus False Self.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is it brings us face to face with the fundamental problem of human suffering. It poses an incredibly direct question. Why do we so easily mistake our temporary, physical desires for our eternal identity? Why on earth do we constantly chase material stuff, stress over how we look, and let totally fleeting emotions run our lives, while completely ignoring that underlying, quiet consciousness inside us that never actually changes?
To figure that out, there's a brilliant analogy comparing the familiar with the unfamiliar. Imagine you're walking down the street and you see two people. One is an old friend you've known for decades. The other is a total stranger. Who are you going to run up to and hug? The familiar friend, obviously. Well, our physical body, our emotions, and our wandering thoughts, they're exactly like that familiar friend. We've spent our whole lives hanging out with them. But our true nature, that quiet, observing awareness, feels like a total stranger to us. We don't interact with it, we literally can't touch it, so we just kind of ignore it, mistakenly assuming this familiar physical shell is our ultimate reality.
Which brings us to this pretty stark realization. The physical body is merely an outer shell. Without the true spirit, it cannot experience reality. Think of your body as just a piece of clothing, a garment. Without that invisible true self or observing consciousness actively functioning inside of it, the body would be completely inert, nothing more than a vegetative shell, incapable of experiencing the world. Yet, crazy enough, we spend 100% of our time agonizing over the shell and 0 time cultivating the actual spirit inside it.
All right, Section 3, Dust and Grime. Let's look at how this mistaken identity actually plays out in real time.
We're going to meticulously trace the step-by-step journey of a single thought to see exactly how we accumulate mental grime. Let's use a very modern example. Scrolling through an e-commerce app, say Pinduoduo. Step 1 is just neutral observation. You see a product, maybe a water cup. No big deal, right? But then, Step 2 happens. You read some glowing reviews or watch a flashy ad praising it. Your imagination activates. This imagination is what this philosophy calls dust. It's light, but it's starting to settle on your mind. Then, bam, Step 3, suddenly you feel this intense desire. You absolutely must have this cup. You click buy. That emotional attachment, that craving, that is grime. It's thick, it's sticky, and it latches right onto your consciousness.
And hey, this isn't just about things we see right in front of us on a screen. Have you ever heard of the eighth consciousness? Think of it as this massive, hidden vault storing every memory, sensory input, and experience you've ever had. Have you ever just been sitting there quietly, minding your own business, and suddenly you get hit with a massive craving for a super specific food?
like an overwhelming urge for boneless braised pork trotters wrapped in bamboo leaves, even if you literally haven't eaten them in years. Where does that even come from? Well, it's not random. It's an old sensory memory bubbling up from this deep vault. And here's the kicker. Every single time you engage with that random thought, you're just adding more sticky grime to your mind. To really ground this high-minded philosophy into everyday reality, let's jump into Section 4, the range hood metaphor.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what we are doing to ourselves. I want you to imagine your mind as a kitchen range hood. When we're born, our pure awareness is completely clean, often described in these texts as being maybe the size of a thumb, just a pure, tiny root. But over decades of desiring, scrolling, craving, and attaching heavy emotions to every passing thought, we pull in mental grease. Over a whole lifetime, that pure, thumb-sized root becomes totally smothered in a wash basin-sized clump of thick, disgusting grease. Literally every wandering thought acts like sticky cooking grease getting sucked straight into the pristine motor of your mind.
And that leads to a pretty sobering quote. We are constantly adding grease 24 hours a day instead of cleaning it. Just think about that for a second. Our minds literally never stop. Daytime wandering thoughts, endless anxieties, random desires, and even our nighttime dreams. The motor is just constantly running, constantly sucking in more metaphorical grease. Instead of using any kind of mental discipline to clean the filter, we just keep cooking up more desires, which ultimately suffocates the very motor of our minds until it completely breaks down, leaving us with stress, anxiety, and just deep dissatisfaction.
Which brings us to Section 5, Focus to Escape. Because the obvious question here is, how do we get out of this mess? So the crucial point is implementing extreme single-minded focus. It's a brilliantly simple yet incredibly difficult fix. Complete single-mindedness in the present moment. When you're reading, only read. When you're cooking, only cook. Don't cook while stressing about watering the plants or drafting an email in your head. Because when you divide your attention like that, you're just generating more dust. But what about when those random cravings bubble up from the vault we talked about? Here's the trick. Treat those arising thoughts like actual clowns jumping around in the corner of your room. Acknowledge they're there, sure, but absolutely refuse to engage with them. Don't give them an ounce of your energy. Because if you completely ignore the clown, eventually it gets bored and stops performing. By actively starving these wandering thoughts of your attention, you finally stop adding grease to the machine. You step out of that thick grime and into the vast, clear sky of your true nature. So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to take with you. Take a hard look at your own daily habits. Are you going to wake up tomorrow and just keep unconsciously adding grease to the machine with every wandering desire? Or will you focus your mind, ignore the clowns, and step into the clear sky today? The choice of exactly where you place your attention is entirely yours.